Hey everyone, Lewis aka Spiderman 1981, and it is the 6th day in my Avengers Infinity War countdown series. By tomorrow, Avengers Infinity War will be released and my final video will be up in honor of the movie coming out. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 MCU movies. 4 years ago I did make another top 10, but back then, that was only when we had exactly 10 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now that that list has increased by 8, I decided it was time to make an updated version, especially considering that we are entering the big event that Marvel Studios has been building since the first Iron Man movie. Without further ado, let's start with number 10, AntMan. AntMan is a really fun superhero heist film. It was something that I was a little skeptical about, especially since they announced Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. But when I found out he was playing Scott Lang and that I saw the trailer with a more comedic approach, I thought, okay, this could work. And I'm glad I was proven right. It definitely proved my expectations were wrong. The movie was better than I initially thought. I thought out of all the Ant-Man they picked, Scott Lang was a good choice because he was definitely the most relatable of the three. And it is very nice that they also paid homage to Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, by including him as Scott's mentor. Also, the acting between Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas was really great. They both played their roles very well. And I also enjoyed the addition of Evangeline Lilly, who proved a great character as Hope Van Dyne and really made everyone look forward to seeing The Wasp in a sequel, which they confirmed in the post-credits scene. And Ant-Man and the Wasp will be out this summer, 2 months right after Infinity War. Also, there's a really nice supporting cast. The person that I think stood out in this area was definitely Michael Pena. He was hilarious as Luis. Just everything he said it had you enthralled. Everything he said really caught my attention, and I was paying attention. It was very funny and entertaining, and Ant-Man was just a really fun heist film, which was nice. And however, the reason why it's number 10 on my list is because of what happened with Edgar Wright. Now, Edgar Wright initially directed the movie, but then he quit due to creative disputes between Marvel Studios and what he wanted to do, and so Peyton Reed filled in. While this movie is still fun and awesome, I really regret that we haven't seen like a full Edgar Wright Ant-Man movie. And speaking of getting rid of the weirdo and embracing him, this leads into our next choice, number 9, Thor Ragnarok. Alright, Taika Waititi's take on the Thor franchise with this movie was a very nice breath of fresh air. It was something funny. It wasn't what you expected to see in a Thor movie. I mean, it was awesome, funny. It had a lot of action that made it feel like an 80s action movie, which is great. It also provided new life to some very familiar MCU characters such as the Hulk, Thor, and Loki, and also provide some new and entertaining characters with Valkyrie, Hela, and also Jeff Goldblum. Seriously, you can never get enough of Jeff Goldblum. Taika Waititi figured out a way to get Planet Hulk in this movie, because this is going to be the closest we'll get to seeing Mark Ruffalo playing the Hulk in a Planet Hulk movie, unfortunately, because the distribution rights to the Hulk films are with Universal. But man, this movie was fun and awesome. It was definitely in a new, bold direction, which felt like Thor definitely needed. The reason why it's number 9 though on my list is because sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I love this movie, I love the comedy, it's just that sometimes with comedies I feel like if I watch them too frequently, then they'll start to lose their magic for me. I mean, I like to, whenever I rewatch a comedy, I always like to space it out so that way I can enjoy it more and I don't feel so burnt out from it. Nevertheless, Thor Ragnarok, it's still fun, entertainment, and it helped set up Thor and Loki and the Hulk, what they're doing right before Infinity War. Number 8 on my list is Black Panther. Okay, the movie's not out on Blu-ray yet, so I figured I'd just show my Black Panther Disney Infinity figure. Now, this movie just came out, so I really don't think I need to remind people how great this movie is, so I'll try to keep it short. The best thing about Black Panther for me is probably the cast. I already knew Chadwick Boseman was outstanding as T'Challa because of the way we saw him in Civil War, but the rest of the cast in this movie were very great. It was very amazing. Each character felt like they had real depth to them. The two actors, though, for me, that stole the show from Chadwick Boseman were probably Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger and Letitia Wright as Shuri. Seriously, I loved Shuri. She was funny, very entertaining. If they ever want to kill off, if T'Challa dies in Infinity War and Shuri becomes the new Black Panther, I'm okay with that. I'm seriously okay with that. Ryan Coogler, the director, did an impressive job introducing the world of Wakanda and also creating a story that sees T'Challa learning how to be both a good king and a good man. Now, the reason why this movie is at number 8, because I feel like I need to explain this, is because I wasn't really worried about it going in. I mean, seriously, the trailers looked awesome. Everything about it looked great. I had a lot of hype going into it, and I didn't have to worry about Chadwick Boseman because I already saw him in Civil War. So that was all good for me. And personally, there are a couple of Marvel characters that I do love a bit more than Black Panthers. Number 7 on my list is Doctor Strange. While the other Marvel heroes had their powers and stories rooted in science fiction, this is the first Marvel movie to embrace the magic side of the Marvel comics. Also, Benedict Cumberbatch is one of my favorite actors, and when they announced that they were doing Doctor Strange, I immediately thought he would be perfect for this role. Then they announced that he was in talks. I'm like, please God, let this work. And it did. Also, Cumberbatch provided the motion capture and parts of the voice for Dormammu. So he got to play both the hero and the big bad. Okay, well, technically the big bad was Caecilius, but, you know, the other big bad. Doctor Strange defeating Dormammu with a time loop was very clever. I thought that was impressive use and a good way to reveal that the Eye of Agamotto is actually the Time Stone. I mean, that was really great and something that I really hadn't seen before in a Marvel movie. And also the visuals in this movie were very great. In fact, if you have like one of those 4K 3D TVs, definitely watch this movie in that format because it will blow your mind. Number 6 on my list is Spider-Man Homecoming. Alright, I was very close to putting this in my top 5. I really was. I love Spider-Man. If you've watched any of my past videos, you know Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel hero. In fact, you should tell by the name of my channel. So naturally, when they finally announced that, hey, Spider-Man's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, my mind was completely blown and I was super excited. Now, even though we were already introduced to Spider-Man in Civil War, Homecoming does a way better job showing us more of, giving us the Spider-Man that we've always wanted to see from the comics on the big screen. Homecoming gives us a classic high school wall crawler in a coming-of-age story that allows it to be connected to a larger superhero universe without ruining the sake of his own story. Now, I will say this, Tom Holland is probably the best Spider-Man actor ever, and Michael Keaton plays the villain, Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, and he was probably one of the better Marvel villains, you know, right up there with Killmonger and Loki. And I think the scene that really shows the best antagonist between the two of them isn't really in a battle, but like in the car when Adrian ends up driving Peter and his daughter Liz to the school dance, and Adrian slowly figures out that Peter is Spider-Man. Then he confronts Peter before he heads into the school, which was really great. Now, despite my love of Spider-Man and this movie, the reason why it was not in my top 5 is because while it's a fantastic story and I loved it, it doesn't really add much to the overall MCU narrative. And I figured on a list that's about top 10 MCU films, I should at least most of my time, I figured a big factor should be how these movies affect the larger narrative. So this is a good jumping on point to my number 5 pick, Iron Man, the movie that started it all. If this movie had failed critically and financially, there would be no Guardians of the Galaxy, no Netflix Daredevil, no Avengers, no MCU. Tony's origin in this movie pretty much became the formula for most modern superhero origins. Although you can't really deny how effective this was the first time you saw it. Plus, the movie helped renew interest in Iron Man, who at the time was pretty much a B-list character that most people, if you went down the street and asked about the best Marvel superheroes, they'd all say Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Hulk. But now, Iron Man's practically a household name thanks to this movie, and it also helped revitalize RDJ's Robert Downey Jr.'s career. And this is also the movie that is the reason why no one can leave the theater until they see all of the credits. Moving on to my number 4 pick, Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie took one of Marvel's most obscure comics and made it into a big hit. James Gunn delivers a well-balanced story that's both action-packed and full of comedy, and the cast of this film provides some very memorable performances that eventually led to everyone you know saying, "I am Groot" for the rest of 2014 and probably a good chunk of 2015. This definitely wasn't the traditional superhero story that Marvel was putting out, but it was something different that really paid off and became that both fans and the studio loved. And the reason why I think I put this so high on my list is because at the time I had barely known about Guardians of the Galaxy. I knew about the run that probably inspired this series, and I was gonna read it eventually, but once this movie was coming out, I decided, okay, it's time to read this. So this movie helped me explore another part of the Marvel Comics that I really hadn't paid attention to. Time for number 3, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. This pretty much is what the movie that made Captain America cool for a wider audience. It pretty much put Captain America in probably the perfect story for him. A non-stop action spy thriller that felt like it was straight out of a comic book written by Ed Brubaker, who, by the way, Ed Brubaker also has a cameo in this movie. Plus, it affected the entire MCU when it revealed that, hey, Hydra has been slowly rebuilding itself within S.H.I.E.L.D. since S.H.I.E.L.D. was founded. The real reason I always reference that when I bring up this movie is because it didn't just make this movie, isn't what made this movie great, but it also got people more interested in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because I remember when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. first started, a lot of people weren't that excited for it. While yes, we got to see Phil Coulson back, the earlier episodes were a bit rough. There was like no real major ongoing arc for these characters. But then when we find out, hey, Hydra's infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., that's when the show found its direction and it got better. So Winter Soldier didn't just change the MCU movies, but changed also one of its subsidiary properties, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, which is fantastic. And to me, that's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about. It's not just the movies, it's about the TV shows, the Netflix series, all of it trying to connect it together, which was great. Also, I really love the team of Falcon, Black Widow, and Captain America. They are really great. A really great team, and it makes sense that those three still stuck around together after Cap broke everyone out in Civil War. Also, to be honest, the reveal of Bucky being the Winter Soldier, it isn't really a surprise to anyone that read the comics, but still, it was fun to see it play out on the big screen. Okay, the number 2 slot on my list is actually a tie. It is Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. The reason both these movies share one spot is because while Avengers definitely raised the bar for all superhero movies, Age of Ultron just kind of like stayed in the same spot. And for a while, Avengers was my favorite MCU movie, and when Age of Ultron came out, I felt the same way that I felt about Avengers. It didn't really surpass it, it just kind of like stayed in the same space, so to speak. Avengers was the first time multiple superheroes from their own movies came together for one. I was a little skeptical at first when Avengers was announced. Part of me thought, oh geez, having that many actors together, it might not be that great. Something might screw it up. But then Joss Whedon was announced, and I saw a lot of his work, and I felt more comfortable and ready, like, okay, this could definitely work. And when I finally saw the movie, I was blown away. Whedon managed to create a well-balanced story where neither character felt short-sighted, and also managed to tell a very epic story at the same time. Age of Ultron I really do like. It is definitely one of my favorites, mostly because we got introduced to new versions of classic Avengers, Quicksilver, the Scarlet Witch, and the Vision. Seriously, that scene where Vision lifts up Thor's hammer and hands it to him, everyone in the theater just was silent. Dead silent. And while Age of Ultron definitely was more action-oriented, we didn't really have to waste time with the team getting to know each other. Everyone was comfortable. The plot was definitely weighed down by some things that the studio definitely felt like they needed to add, such as Thor's Vision cave scene. That was definitely something that could have helped the movie itself, but I think for the larger MCU, it was a good way to help tie them into the Infinity Infinity Stone arc, but nevertheless, it kind of cost Age of Ultron itself some points with it. Also, one of the things that I like to do is watch both of these movies back to back. And watching them back to back is a fun way because they're a nice lead into each other where you get the team just together for the first time and still together kicking ass. And that's why both of these movies are tied for my number 2 slot. Okay, so this is my number 1 slot. My favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It is Civil War. All of them. Now, the reason why Civil War is my favorite is because of all the movies that led up to it. All of these movies that were about getting these heroes united, getting them to work together as a team, forming the Avengers, becoming Earth's mightiest heroes. And suddenly, in just one movie, it's all gone. The best part, for me, it wasn't just this. Now, this was based around the comic book arc Civil War, where the superheroes had to register their identities with the federal government. Cap was against it, Iron Man was for it. We do get a similar document in the MCU called the Sokovia Accords, where the Avengers have to be more accountable and have to be working directly with the UN government. Of course, Cap doesn't believe this, especially with what he went through during the Winter Soldier. However, Tony, because of his actions during Age of Ultron, feels like they do need someone to keep them in check. For me, the best part about this movie was the fight between Captain America and Iron Man in Russia. Now, and because of their fight, it wasn't about the Sokovia Accords. It was about the fact that Cap knew Bucky, when he was brainwashed, killed Tony's parents and never told him. So the thing that finally drove a wedge between them wasn't a document. It wasn't just a huge it wasn't an argument. It was an emotional conflict. And also, seeing Captain America and Bucky fight Iron Man is definitely my favorite fight scene in the MCU. And even though there are differences between this movie and the actual comic book, it still managed to capture the same spirit and tell a very epic story. Also, this is the movie that introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man, 2 MCU heroes who had very awesome movies that were also on this list. Also, this was directed. Also, even though the Russo brothers directed Winter Soldier, when it was announced that they were taking over the Avengers 3 and 4 from after Joss Whedon left after Age of Ultron, I was a bit worried. But when I saw Civil War, I realized that, yeah, these dudes can handle all of the MCU heroes for that movie. Like, that movie is in good hands. So this movie definitely helped me with the direction of the MCU going forward as well. But overall, because of how long I've watched the MCU, how I've been a fan of it, this movie was definitely something that felt very paid off, a great payoff for fans that have stuck through since the very first Iron Man movie. Overall, that is why Civil War is my favorite MCU film. So there you have it, my top 10 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. What'd you guys think? What are your top 10 films? Let me know in the comments below. Also, there's one video left for the Avengers Infinity War video countdown series, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. Also, make sure you stay subscribed and notified, and follow me on Twitter so you'll know when the video is posted. Thank you again for watching. I'm Spiderman 1991 saying, see you later.